Hello, everybody. So nice to see you all. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being together. My name is Jenny, and it's an open evening from the Hebrew community through principles that me, Yael, and Rachel are in the board. We are going to host MAVIS Karen today. Masha Leshenko will translate. Thank you, Masha. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, beautiful people, for coming and being together with us. I will introduce 3PGC that we are part of a global community. And the Three Principles Global Community is a non-profitable organization that is committed to bringing understanding of the three principles to people around the world. And first, I just wanted to say thank you, Mavis. Thank you for coming. I will shortly introduce you, and we will be very, very happy to be with you today. I will do it in Hebrew because the bio is in Hebrew. אז מייביס היא יועצת ומחנכת יועצים ומנטורית למנטורים בסנט פול, מינסוטה, ארצות הברית. מייביס מספרת על עצמה, ביליתי למעלה מ-45 שנים בעבודה עם יחידים, משפחות, עסקים, בתי חולים, בתי ספר, בתי סוהר, סוכנויות ממשלתיות ומרכזי טיפול, מחלקות משטרה ועמותות, משרדי עורכי דין, שבטים וסוכנויות אינדיאניות, ספורטאים בודדים וצוותים ומאמנים ומטפלים וכן הלאה והלאה. העבודה שלי לקחה אותי לכל רחבי ארצות הברית ולדרום אפריקה, כמו גם למדינות רבות בזום, כמו מדינה שלנו היום. והבנתי שאולי כל זה נראה מאוד מרשים, אבל אני בערוב של חיי, וסיפרה לנו שהיא בת 83, ולקח די הרבה זמן עד שהרשימה הזאת גדלה. אבל בסופו של דבר, הכל נראה לי פשוט צבירת זמן מרגע לרגע, ועשיית מה שאני אוהבת לעשות, והעברת המידע הטוב ביותר שקיבלתי בחיי, לכל מי שמעוניין לשמוע את זה. לאחרונה כתבתי ספר יחד עם מייקל ניר, בשם זה כל כך פשוט, מדריך למשתמש לבני אדם. And I just shared that I'm working with your book for the last 10 days, most of the day. So I'm personally grateful.
Thank you very much. I'm pretty sure you probably just said nice things about me, right? Okay. I'm so glad that you invited me here. There are a lot of people around the world who are feeling kind of helpless right now about what's happening. So to be invited to just be with you for a bit, and if there's anything I can do or say that might lighten the load a bit, I'm grateful. So, shalom. Yesterday, for whatever reason, I remembered a little book a little book that I've had now for about 60 years. And this is the book. And it's probably familiar to most of you. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He, as many of you know, was interred in Auschwitz, among other places, during World War II, and lost his entire family to the Holocaust. Ah, yes, yes. And there's something he says about that. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. That's what the principles say. So I say that today because I want you to know that the principles describe what is. They describe who we really are. They describe how we're made. At least that's how I see it. They tell us that we are divinely engineered. We are made perfectly. In our engineering, everything we need has been included. That doesn't mean everything that we thought we needed. It means everything that we need is included in our engineering. So I want you to kind of understand that's where I'm coming from. That I never see anybody anymore that has anything wrong with them. And that's not because I have a test that they have to take to prove that there's nothing wrong with them. There isn't anything wrong with anyone. We are all uniquely perfect. It's like there are no duplicates in nature. No identical two things. Not in snowflakes, not in grains of sand, not in trees, not in bugs, not in elephants, and not in human beings. Yet we are all made of exactly the same ingredients. We are made, as the late Carl Sagan said, of stardust. We are made of the ingredients in stars, in everything. All of us are made of exactly the same thing, but there are no duplicates. Now, I don't know about all of you, but I trust an intelligence that can pull that off. So I want to start there. We are made of the intelligence that pulled that off. We want to consider being really respectful of who we are and how we're made. So in these trying times, we can choose to be one of those people that knows that there's nothing wrong with any of us. And we can be one of those people who see that when people are doing horrible things, it's not because there's something wrong with them. It's because they don't know there isn't anything wrong with them or anybody else. So they believe everything they think, and in some cases act on it. And that's what war is. That's what racism is. That's what murder is. Now, that's not an excuse for anyone, but it's the reason And I don't mean we have to say, oh, well, then we don't have to do anything about that. Well, that's not true. But we do get to decide the attitude from which we do what we do. We do get to decide that. It's understandable that we would all get enraged by what's happening. It's understandable that we might want revenge. We might want to do unto them what they did unto us. It's understandable. But the opposite of anger and frustration and rage isn't passivity. It's calm, clear determination. Can I say that again? The opposite of anger and revenge and frustration is not passivity. It's calm, clear determination. And it comes from a far deeper place than our personal intelligence. It comes from that wisdom and that common sense, that God stuff that we're made of. That's where we know exactly what the next right step is. That's where we know exactly what to do. And we know it when we need to know it. Because we are made that way. That is our divine engineering. We can be highly educated and have a vast personal bunch of knowing. But what we are made of is far deeper and more profound and always true. We are made of love and truth. And we are made of that whether we ever realize it or not. And you want to know that. You really want to know that. And even if you don't believe it, even that, if that just seems like, well, I don't know, that's just a pretty airy fairy or too far out or something. Even if you don't believe it, I want to ask you to consider the possibility it might be true. Just even a little bit, consider the possibility it might be true. That's all you need. Because it's true anyway, even if you don't believe it. But just consider that the intelligence of the universe didn't leave anything out. It didn't create flaws in anyone or anything. We are everything we need to be. And in the hardest, toughest of times, we can choose our attitude. And the way that we know how to choose an attitude is by how we feel. Every thought is also a sensation that we experience in our body. Every thought. I've said this a gazillion times, but you can't sneak a thought by your body. Your body always lets you know the quality of the thinking you're doing in this moment. That is the loyalty of our divine engineering. It never gives up on us. It lets us know instantly the quality of the experience we're creating. That's divine engineering. That's amazing. I remember a long time ago, um, you should see my desk. No, you shouldn't really see my desk. It's a mess. But a long time ago, I saw this. That's a turtle, and that's a bunch of butterflies drinking the turtle's tears. Now, when I saw that picture in a magazine, I thought, what is that? And underneath it said, these butterflies are drinking the turtle's tears because they need that particular liquid for their reproductive process. And in turn, the turtle gets its eyes cleaned. Who made that up? That is divine collaboration. That is amazing. And that's one tiny, tiny, tiny little part of the magnificence of creation. So you can probably tell I'm a big fan of understanding the perfection of the human being and all the rest of creation. Now, that does not mean that I don't occasionally forget that. I do. Every once in a while, more often than I'd like, I think that if I was God, I'd do something a little different. But since there doesn't seem to be an election for that position, I keep getting proved wrong that what I thought was something wrong wasn't. It was just a perfect part of the whole. It just wasn't what I had in mind. So, in this time, in any time, it's so important that we know what we have available to us constantly. That no set of circumstances, nobody else's thinking, nobody else's behavior gets to decide how we experience it. I remember this was several years ago. I was watching the news one night, and there was some disaster going on someplace, and the person in the front of the screen was telling us all about it. And right behind him, he was at a refugee camp, and right behind him, there were a bunch of little kids kicking a soccer ball around. And I remember thinking, what is that? There's all this awfulness going on, and those kids are kicking the soccer ball around. They weren't having a disastrous experience right then. They were having fun. Now, it doesn't mean that they were always having fun. I'm sure they were bewildered much of the time and scared much of the time and whatever. But in that moment, they were having fun. And the circumstances had nothing to do with it. Now, I don't know if I could do that. I like to think that if I'm in the middle of something that's dangerous and life-threatening, maybe, that I could be so still that I wasn't terrified or whatever. I don't know if I could do that. I might be able to pull it off now and then. But even that, because I lucked out and learned how well we're made some 40 some years ago. Even then, I would know if I was terrified that the way I was thinking about things was creating terror. I would know that. Don't know if I'd be able to stop it, but I would know it. And I would know there was an alternative. I don't know if I could manage to find it, but I would know there was one so that I might come and go from being terror stricken to being still. And people do that all the time. They don't even know they have that app and they do it. All kinds of people have been in accidents or scary situations and found themselves, they would say it like time stood still. And I knew what to do. And I did it. And I didn't feel terrified until after I thought about what could have happened. And I was already safe. It's an inborn trait, an inborn app that we have, that we can be still in the middle of chaos. And you have all probably experienced it at some time or other and didn't know that it was an app that was built into you. But it is. I want to show you another picture. That's not a Halloween mask. That's me a year ago. I use this picture to scare people with. I I was in a hurry and I tripped and fell and got some stitches and sprained wrists, and it was kind of a mess. But see this now? Now you have to say I look better. Okay. But I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. My body took care of it. Body took care of it. My divine engineering said, oh man, she did it again. Okay, let's fix it. Don't you think that's amazing? That we don't have to do anything, but our body knows and just goes to work. Goes to work. You can get a cut on your hand and your body sends whatever it needs to just that place and puts a little cover over it. And then when it's all healed up, the cover falls off. Ta-da! That's not magic. That's how well we're taken care of by our own engineering. I want you to know this because it's your armor. It's your spiritual and psychological armor to understand the perfection of creation and understand that war and evil comes about because people don't understand the perfection of creation. They just don't understand it. It's innocent. What they do, they are guilty of. But they are innocent of not knowing any better. Do you think this would be a good time for questions?
Yes. I think we will do a little bit different than what we used to do last week. So, guys, if you have questions, you can raise your hand, your virtual hand, and Kate will unmute you. And you can ask in Hebrew, English, Russian. We will translate.
And it doesn't have to be questions. Maybe you have something to add to this. Everybody needs to hear your stories. I'm a big fan of collaborative teaching. So if you have stories that you want to share and add to this gathering, please do. I don't have to be the focus of it. Do you ever notice that's the quickest way to get everybody to be quiet, to ask them to ask a question? Excuse me.
We have Larissa. Лариса, можно на русском, на иврите.
Меня слышно?
Да.
Ага. Добрый вечер. Я благодарю организаторов и благодарю Машу за знакомство с MAVIS и за то, что мы можем присутствовать и понимать то, что говорит MAVIS. Я благодарю MAVIS за ту простоту и ясность, с которой она доносит вот эти знания, 3 принципа. И сейчас мне просто хотелось в подтверждение привести свой личный пример того, что сказала MAVIS, о том, что в какой-то патовой ситуации время останавливается, и мы знаем, что делать. Эта ситуация была из моей...
Сделаю трансляцию на английский. Маш, ты хочешь на английский?
Да, I can translate. I can translate in English. So Larissa is saying that she just want to add from her own experience that it's truly so. When some dangerous situations, time kind of stands still, and then you know what you should do. So that's what she wanted to add. So she wanted to share her story.
Я тогда была юной матерью, и ребенку моему было, может быть, 2 годика. Он сидел за столом, и каким-то образом он упал со стула под батарею и рассек себе весь лоб. Просто рассек лоб. И кровь хлестала.
I was a young mother. My child was 2 years old, and he stood on a stool and he fell heavily. He fell and hit himself over the radiator, and it was a huge cut on his head, and it was just blood was everywhere.
И я помню вот это состояние, когда весь мир остановился, а я просто делала из какого-то глубинного потрясающего спокойствия. Я его, взяла на руки, вымыла это, отнесла в травмопункт, там ему зашили, принесла домой, положила спать.
So, and I remember myself that I was so calm somehow, and I was able to take care of him. I took him, I washed him, I brought him to the emergency center, and then I took care of him, put him to bed, etc., etc. And it all was like I was at some different state of mind completely.
И при этом я ему все время веселила его, говорила, что все в порядке.
And at the same time, somehow it came to my mind to entertain him. I say, just saying some funny stuff to him and making him laugh and saying that everything is okay.
И только когда, после того, как он уснул, меня начал трясти.
And only after he fell asleep, I started to shake heavily.
И вот именно с того момента я тогда еще не знала про 3 принципа, но я точно знаю, что в момент опасности всегда знаешь, что делать.
And at the same moment, from that very moment, even I didn't know about the principles per se, I knew since that moment that in the moments of danger, I will always know what to do.
И есть вот это глобальное спокойствие внутри.
And that I will have access to that ultimate calm within me.
Ну, может быть, мой пример вам пригодится.
So maybe
Спасибо.
my story will serve you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you.
Спасибо большое.
You're absolutely right that you can always know, but it's important to know that you can always know. There isn't anything you need to do. You'll just know. Oh, that's a great story.
I love the part when you told us how your body shook, that it was shaking when it was safe enough to shake.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Okay, do we have Ina?
Здравствуйте. Здравствуйте всем. Так рада вас видеть. Здоровыми, улыбающимися. Я тоже хочу поделиться своей историей, как я пережила одну войну в 2014 году, и я была в ужасе, я просто уехала. Когда случилось второй раз, я была на Украине, у меня уже был к тому времени ребенок. И ситуация ввела меня в ступор. Я была одна, без супруга уже, я была в разводе. Можно продолжать, Маш?
Я переведу. So I wanted to share a story. I experienced the war twice. It was 2014 when the war in eastern part of Ukraine just started. And I was there and I left. And then when I came back to Ukraine, I was a mother at that time, and I was a single mother. I was divorced.
Вот, я была, значит, самым в семье ведущей силой. У меня был маленький ребенок и маме, которой было 80 лет.
And I had my mom who was 80 years old, and I had my little child, and they all depended on me.
Да. И, значит, это длилось 2 недели. Я сидела под канонадой, я так попала, в такие ужасные события. И история, которая крутилась у меня в голове, я тогда была не знакома с 3 принципами, она была жалкая, я себя жалела.
So I was sitting for 2 weeks under shelling, and I just appeared in a very heavy situation as for the war conditions. And I didn't know anything about the principles at the moment. So that story that was real for me at that time was miserable. I felt so sorry for myself. I couldn't help it.
И в какой-то момент меня отпустило. Я не знаю, это внутренняя какая-то сила или движение, прям как будто спали оковы. Сказала, хватит!
But at some point, it's just I kind of was able to let go, as if some inner force just told me enough, and as if some chains fell off of me.
Да, я уже дошла до такой степени, что я не выходила на улицу, я просто боялась.
I was so afraid for 2 weeks I couldn't go outside.
И я решила на утро, рано утром, погрузить все в машину.
And I decided the next morning to put all my stuff into my car.
Это было страшно, потому что не прекращались эта канонада, и я погрузила маму, ребенка. И самое было, сделать трудно было первый шаг.
it was still under shelling. It was all under ongoing shelling. It was very difficult, but I still was able to put my mom, my belongings, my child into the car.
Этот путь был интересным, потому что я встречала людей, которые меня вывозили из мест невероятных, просто наливали мне в бак бензина. И это было как будто забота Бога, потому что бесплатно наливали тебе полный бак бензина. Это путь был в Польшу. Я ехала с Харькова в Польшу.
And I was living in Kharkiv, the city that was one of the most heavily bombed cities in Ukraine at the moment. It's still, and it was the path of miracles because everybody was so helpful. People were just filling my tank with gas for free. People just were helping me from place to place until I was able to get to safety.
Абсолютно чужие люди проявляли мне такую заботу.
The people who I didn't know. They were strangers, but they were filled with just care and good towards me.
Вот случилось, я выехала, все, я пересекла границу, и я такая, фух, в Польше. А что делать? Я же не знаю, что у меня не было плана, что делать дальше.
So, and then I finally was able to get to Poland, and then I still didn't know what to do now because I finished one part of the path, but then I didn't know what I can do.
И знаете, я пошла в туалет и сказала, мне надо 5 минут паузы.
And I went to the toilet, to the bathroom, and I told myself, I need to pause for 5 minutes.
Я шла, думала, где мне взять ответ? Где мне взять ответ? Ну где же этот ответ? Все, ничего не хочу слышать, и как-то сама по себе затихла. Вот сама по себе.
And I realized that I just need to become quiet to find the answer for myself.
И ответ пришел.
And I got the answer in that quiet.
И голос внутри мне сказал, едь за автобусом.
And some voice within me told me, follow this bus. You should follow this bus. Not like a voice, but, you know, the voice from within.
Да, я бы сама не догадалась.
I would never realize that I should follow the bus. I didn't make it up. So,
Да, это была реальная помощь. Ну, то есть...
it was real help from that place within.
Это было здорово. 2 раза и 2 раза из тишины.
2 times, and 2 times out of this space of quiet, I got really important help when I needed it for my life and for the life of those who depended on me. Спасибо.
Спасибо вам.
Thank you so much.
It's good to be you, huh?
Это хорошо быть тобой, а?
Oh, that's I tell you how it is, and then you give me all these examples of, yep, that's true.
Это удивительно. Я говорю вам, вот как это работает. И потом вы даете мне массу примеров того, что да, вот смотри, в моей жизни это так и работает.
That's wonderful. I had an experience about 2 weeks ago. I was at a intersection in my car, and I was going to turn right onto a street, and the car next to me was a big van. It was going to turn left onto the street. And all of a sudden, on a cross street, 2 cars collided. And one of them took off the whole front end of the car to my left, and the other one took off the other way and rolled over in the ditch. And I just, first thing I did was, am I okay? And, yep, I was okay. And in the next minute, everybody in the other cars, even the ones that were totally smashed, except for one woman who was hurt, got out of their cars and went to see if everybody was okay. There was no yelling. There was no blaming. There was nothing except, are you okay? Everybody. And that was 14 people. The first thing they did was to see if everybody else was okay. That's who we are. That's who we are. It was a good day to be a human being. I underline that. I say that's who we are because it isn't just this kind of magical incident when everybody behaved well. No, that's who we are. That happens way more with way more people than war. But war gets all the attention. So it looks like it's the most important thing and it's everywhere. No. The thing that's everywhere is who people really are and how they behave when they're coming from who they really are. We need to know that. We need to know that's way more often than war. But war makes so much noise. It's so awful. And it's on the news all the time. But the human beings that are being kind to one another, that are helping one another, no matter what the politics, no matter what the skin color, no matter what the language, no matter what. That's the story. That's the true story of human beings. Anyone else?
Joe, you have a question?
I don't have a question. I wanted to tell about what happened to me very recently. I've been learning about the three principles for a couple of years, and all through that time, I felt that it was completely intellectual, and it wasn't sinking in. To be honest, getting pretty frustrated, but I kept listening. It took a war. Last week, well, at the beginning of the week and until about Wednesday, I was probably in the same mental state that everybody else was after what happened on Saturday. But I kept getting these wonderful messages from people, messages of support and love, from people all over the world, some of whom I haven't heard from for years, people showing how much they cared. I work for HP. I live here in Israel, and I'm the only one from my team. The rest of my team is all in the States. And the whole of my team were just so incredibly supportive, some of them in ways that I really could not have imagined. That in itself kind of brought me back to a place of understanding that that's what humanity is and not what was going on besides that. But my big moment was
on Wednesday evening, I attended a webinar of the almond tree with Linda Pransky and Claire Schutz and Julian Fellers, which is a group, three-piece group for caregivers. And I look after my daughter, who's disabled, and I spoke for a couple of minutes about how I was feeling and where things were going, and they reflected back what I had said and basically said to me, "You're doing really well. You're doing everything that you can and should be doing right now in this horrible situation." All three of them said that to me in different ways, and it hit me in a way that I just suddenly understood that I'm okay, and that there's all this horrible stuff happening around me, and I've been feeling all these horrible feelings, but when it comes down to it, I'm okay, and I know how to deal with this, and I'm dealing with it, and that's it. And this is the beginning for me of really learning, understanding. So I just wanted to tell people that.
Bravo.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing to really understand that we are enough. We have everything we need. We're enough.
Здравствуйте. Алло. Я увидела, что мне сняли микрофон. Да, здравствуйте.
Hello.
Майс, я
Включите еще раз, пожалуйста, микрофон.
включу. А сейчас слышно?
Слышно.
Все, дорогие мои, я очень рада быть сегодня здесь. И вот маме хочу сказать, у меня есть ее книга.
I'm so glad to be here. I want to tell Mavis that I have her book right there with me.
Я много читаю, я это все...
I read a lot.
И все увидеть в своей жизни, о чем ты пишешь. И вот сегодня я хочу зацепить вот этот момент, который и Мави сегодня говорила, про доверие и про заботу о нас от божественной инженерии, от вот этого разума творящего.
And I wanted to tell that about this divine engineering, about engineering of our human being, and about that care from the universe about each one of us.
И доверие, да. И когда
And the
сегодня
trust.
И Мавис сегодня давала пример вот о том, как, например, бабочки пьют слезы. Да? Я помню, когда-то Марина Галан рассказывала о том, вот как все совершенно создано, что деревья, веточки тянутся к солнцу, а корни идут к воде. Я помню, когда...
And I remember how Mavis was saying today about the turtle who has those butterflies who drinking its tears. And then I remembered how Marina Galan was telling us about how this all designed, how the branches are going towards the light and etc.
И я когда-то сама восхищалась тому факту, увидела, что, например, дятел, он стучит об дерево, и как бы любое другое существо получило бы уже от этого движения множество сотрясения мозгов, а у него нет, потому что вот так построена вот голова, что эта волна уходит где-то там, мимо.
And the woodpecker who's doing this with a tree, any other bird would actually get the concussion out of this intensity of movement, but his head, his skull built the way that he's completely fine with all that activity.
И это о заботе, это о доверии. Но в то же время я потом вот думаю, есть такие мысли, но эти же насекомые, да, как бы так задумано, что их будет съедать дятел для того, чтобы жить. Волки будут есть зайцев. Это тоже задумано природой. Мы все в то же время в таком кругу, где выживание одного зависит от того, что он будет есть других. И тогда у
Можно я
меня
переведу?
вопрос...
Минуточку.
Да, давай.
So, but also then I start thinking, and I'm aware that it's my thinking, but still, I still think that and then the woodpecker would eat the insects, and then the wolves will eat the hare, and because their survival depends on eating the other
И это тоже...
representative of alive nature. So, and I have the question about it.
Да, и это для меня тоже вот как уместить это вместе. С одной стороны, все так сотворено, чтобы помочь, но с другой стороны, все так и задумано, что выживание другого и зависит от того, что он ест другого. И получается, вот даже взять вот историю с войны. Сегодня вот одна девушка рассказывала, что как ей удалось выехать. Помогали люди дорогой, да? И в то же время я знаю истории, где люди выезжали и не выехали, где их расстреляли по дороге. Или где в дом прилетела ракета. И где здесь для меня о доверии и о заботе? Как здесь увидеть вот эту заботу? Как здесь положиться на доверие?
Спасибо, я переведу вопрос.
Да.
So I have this question, and I see that it's about trust and it's about care that we have from that universal intelligence. And at the same time, we just heard a lady sharing that she got so much help on her way to the safety, while at the same time, I know there are so many others who didn't make it and were killed during their attempt to get to safety or just being there where they were. So how does that work? That yes, this all care and this trust, and at the same time, the survival of one being depends on him eating another human being, sort of destroying another being. So what would you say about that?
Thank you.
I'm not sure what the question is.
How to put it together? How does it work that it's care, that at the same time there is this care and the good things, but at the same time there's still someone who doesn't get this help. There's still someone who get killed because somebody else made his survival depend on being that person who murders other people.
And there's a little story in that book.
У меня есть маленькая история в этой книге.
About the kids in the prison project that I did, and
о проекте,
And after they got out of prison, we saw them for a while too in some groups. And one of the last groups we had, there were, I don't know, 15 or 20 of them in my conference room. And one of the young men asked if he could start the group. And I said, sure. So he looked around the room and he pointed to each of the other kids and said their name and what gang they were affiliated, if they were affiliated with one. And he went all the way around the room. And I was wondering, I wonder where this is going. But when he got to the last kid, he said, in the past, most of you were my enemies, but now I have love for all of you. And I was just, I couldn't think of anything to think or say. And I thought the kids were gonna, like a whole bunch of boys, somebody says something sweet and they all get giggly and tease. And they didn't do that. They started talking about what would happen if everybody in the world understood what they had been learning. And one of the first kids said there would be no war and all babies would be loved. There'd still be gangs, but there would be gangs for good. And they spent the rest of the hour talking about how the world would be different if people knew how well they were made and when to trust their thinking and when not to. That's all I know. That the more we take care of the only state of mind we have anything to say about, which is our own attitude, our own meaning making, the more we take care of that, the more likely it is we'll have more of a peaceful world. Some people made it through that passageway because there were people that were coming from their better selves, from who they really were. But there was a war going on. And there were people who wanted other people dead. I don't think I'm probably going to live long enough to see everybody being peaceful all the time, because I'm not peaceful all the time. I'm not. But the thing I know is that I don't trust my thinking when I'm not being peaceful. I don't trust it. I try not to say anything or take any action based on thinking I don't trust. And I don't think that answers your question. So maybe in the long run, what it is I don't know. But I wish everybody knew who they were. And I know that when we take care of that for ourselves, every interaction we have moves to higher ground. Because we are 50% of every interaction we have. And when we don't engage in warlike thoughts and behaviors with anyone, that's a start. That's all I know. Every night before I go to bed, I have a habit. Every night before I go to sleep, I check in with the universe And I say, okay, I'm going to sleep now, but show me what I need to know that I don't know yet. I'll see you in the morning. And I'm sure the universe has lots of things to take care of, but I know they have room for me and you and everyone else. I ask to see what I don't know yet. And what that does for me is open all the doors and windows so that there's room for new thought. There's room for aha. Because when we're busy overthinking and worrying and trying to figure things out, there's no room for new thought.
No, maybe I was thinking about what you said, and sometimes I'm writing little things to myself in Hebrew. And you were talking about the uniqueness of each human being. And I was writing to myself, uniqueness, or being unique, just being who you are. In Hebrew, unique is yichudi. But together is yachad. The word together is inside of the word unique. Yes.
Isn't that perfect?
And then I wrote the word perfect, and I connected it to what Deacon was talking about, peace. So the word perfect, peace, and whole are coming from the same root. Mushlam is perfect, shalem is whole, peace is shalom.
Isn't that amazing?
It is. So the question about how can it be that in somebody unique way something is happening, I thought, yeah, because in being unique, we are together.
Yeah. I have a habit. I don't know where I can't remember when I haven't done this. Every once in a while, I'll take a six letter word and I'll write it down and I'll see how many other little words I can find using those letters, right? And just the other day, I was using the word listen. And with those, the same letters that spell listen also spell silent. And I think that's a wonderful thing. Be still and listen.
I was playing with you now in Hebrew. The word listen and the word asking and the word stopping is the same word when I just replace the letters. Keshev, bakesh, shavak. Listening, asking, stopping.
Well, the universe is trying to tell us stuff all the time, isn't it? Using our own words.
Yeah, Ella wanted to ask that you will speak a few moments about listening.
There is a woman, was a woman, who she called herself Peace Walker. And this is some years ago. And she walked all over the United States, back and forth and up and down and all over the United States. She carried everything she owned in a little backpack. She had no money, nothing. She did this for years. And along the way, she just talked about peace. And along the way, she was always given food and shelter. She wouldn't accept anything except what she absolutely needed right then. And there was a documentary about her, and I thought, boy, that's trust. That's faith in the nature of humanity. That you know you will be taken care of by your fellow human beings, no matter what. And she said of us, human beings, we are a cell in the body of the whole. I love that. We are a big deal. And that's not arrogance. That's just the truth. We are a big deal and a part of a bigger deal. Can you see how valuable your stories are? Can you see that? Can you see how fellow human beings getting together and listening to one another and telling our stories, can you see how that's the point? That's it. We are now, at this moment, doing what needs to be done. We listen to one another. We hear each other's stories. I don't think there is a more powerful thing that anybody can do for another human being than to just listen to them. Just listen. Not judge them, not analyze them, not try and fix them, give them unwanted advice. Just listen. There's a story about a little boy. He and his mom lived next door to an elderly couple. And he just loved this couple. He was about 4. And the lady died. And a couple of days afterwards, the mom looked out her window and the little boy was sitting on the steps with the old man, just sitting there. And they sat there for the longest time. And the little boy finally came home, and the mom asked him what he'd been doing. And he said, I was just helping him cry. That's enough. We don't have to be superheroes. Who we are is better than that. We can listen and we can be still till the next step shows itself. And we can know that we are enough. And then we can know that everyone is, whether they know it or not. And we can see that someone else thinking we are less than has nothing to do with us. It's just that they don't know how well they're made. They don't know. There is a quote in the little book by one of my heroes, Archbishop Desmond Tutu from South Africa. And he says, there is no situation that is not transformable. There is no person who is hopeless. There is no set of circumstances that cannot be turned around by ordinary human beings and their natural capacity for love of the deepest sort. And I want you to know I forget that. But then I remember again. And then I forget it. And then I remember again. And when I have forgotten it, I try not to do any harm. Mostly because I hate to clean up messes that I made. I am not always kind. I am not always forgiving. I am not always feeling love from my fellow man or woman. I am not. But I am thankful that I know that that's temporary and that I will come home to myself eventually, and to just keep my mouth shut until that happens. That's all I know. That's the best I know so far.
We have a few more minutes, so if somebody wanted to share something or ask something. Yeah.
Я приветствую всех. Я благодарю за эту встречу и хочу рассказать свою историю, и она будет с вопросом.
I wanted to say hello, and I'm greeting everyone who's here, and I want to share my story. And there's going to be a question within the story.
Эта история всплыла мне случайно, наверное, когда я слушала вас.
And when I was listening to you, the story just kind of emerged from nowhere.
Но в какой-то момент я подумала, что нет, Лиля, это прошлое.
And I thought for a moment, no, that's past. That's from the past.
И тем не менее я решила все-таки
But
озвучить
still,
то, что мне пришло.
I thought I would say it.
Эта история случилась, я живу на Украине, и прифронтовой город.
I live in Ukraine, in the city near the front line.
Был такой случай, очень сильная была бомбежка.
And we had a very heavy shelling.
И то, что произошло буквально в нескольких километрах от моего дома,
And in several kilometers, couple miles from my home,
я понимаю, что это вывело меня просто из моего душевного состояния,
and I
в
felt
котором
thrown off my calm.
я говорю себе, вот я сейчас говорю, и я понимаю, что там что-то есть еще.
And I'm telling about it now, and I feel like there is still something left from that time within me somehow. I feel it.
Когда вы говорили, что каждая мысль, она в теле,
When you said that we feel every thought with our body, we sense it.
я прочувствовала это на себе.
I really felt it when you said it.
Потому что в той ситуации это для меня была очень тяжелая эмоциональная ситуация.
And
И
for me, emotionally, it was very heavy situation emotionally.
в тот день я просто целый день я была в новостях, и я видела все эти жертвы, и у меня было вот такое чувство, что мне надо было, ну вот для чего-то посмотреть на эти все жертвы, на окровавленные трупы. Это было все в доступе по новостям.
And that day I was really watching the news and seeing all the horrible news and all the bodies torn apart and everything. But somehow I felt I needed to see that.
И к концу дня я поняла, что от всех этих пережитых эмоций, от всего этого, у меня просто начало болеть все тело.
But at the end of the day, after seeing all that and feeling all that, I felt like my whole body is aching.
И я поняла, что, Лиля, нужно остановиться.
And
Достаточно в этом проживать.
I told myself, you should stop. It's enough to live that.
3 дня я выходила с этого состояния.
And it took me 3 days to get out, like to get it through all these emotions.
И мне казалось, что я восстановилась.
And I thought that I'm okay. I thought that I restored my stability.
Но через некоторое время ситуация опять повторилась, и снова были жертвы, и снова это было эмоциональное состояние, и снова это была боль в теле.
And then again, in several days, there was again the huge, the big escalation, and there were a lot of victims and a lot of bodies, a lot of blood, and I felt all of it again.
И сейчас, когда я это рассказываю, я понимаю, что эта боль есть в теле.
And even now, when I'm telling it, I feel this pain in my body until now.
И я понимаю, что я не одна такая.
And I understand that I'm not alone in that there are others who feel the same.
И на тот момент я еще была не знакома с принципами.
And at that moment, I didn't know about the principles. I didn't know.
И даже вот сейчас, когда я немного познакомилась с принципами,
But even
Вот
now, when I know principles, I understand it a little.
именно ваши слова, которые вы сказали, что мысль отражается в теле.
It's when you said that the thought is sensed within the body.
И я не понимаю, как это мне понять вот из состояния. Мысль и
Что...
тело.
Мгм. Уточни, пожалуйста, что именно ты не понимаешь, чтобы вопрос я смогла перевести правильно.
Вот мысль, я понимаю, что чувства, они в мыслях, да, вот через мысли.
I
А,
understand that feelings come from the thought.
и вот эти переживания, которые были в мыслях, я понимаю, что они сейчас в моем теле.
But now I still have this sense of that former thoughts still in my body.
Как я могу помочь своему телу?
How can I help my body?
Oh, what a great question. How can I help my body?
Такой прекрасный вопрос.
Your experience, except for the fact that I'm not in a war zone, which is a big difference, your experience is a lot like mine in the last few days, watching the news. And my brain said, don't watch the news, it makes you feel bad. But my wisdom said, the least you can do is bear witness to what others are going through. That's the least you can do. So I watched it, and I really felt bad. That's okay. There's bad stuff going on. And I felt it. I was so exhausted by the time I went to sleep. I just felt it all over my body. And if I think about it in too much detail now, I can re-feel it. But I want to say a word about fear and anger and frustration and all that tight stuff. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is a sensation that's letting us know that we are using our thinking in a way that's terrorizing us. It's on our side. I like to think of fear as saying, shh, be still. You are made of God's stuff. It's not the enemy. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means that you are using your thinking in a way that frightens you. Who doesn't do that? That's not a sin. But I like to think of fear as being my friend, as saying, shh, be still. Be still. Come home. Does that help?
Спасибо вам огромное. Спасибо вам огромное.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Благодарю вас. И я не знаю, я вас слушаю, мне почему-то хочется плакать.
I'm listening to you and somehow I want to cry.
I probably will.
Я бы, наверное, плакала тоже. Я тоже буду плакать, я думаю.
Спасибо вам
So
большое.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Спасибо тебе.
Thank you so much for letting me be with you during these times.
Спасибо, что позволили мне быть с вами рядом в это трудное время.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Спасибо, что ты с нами сегодня, Мэвис. Спасибо тебе. Дженни, я хотела прочитать, здесь есть комментарии в чате о Мэвис, и я бы хотела прочитать и перевести для нее. Мэвис, one of the participants wrote in the chat the comment, the feedback from today. Спасибо большое за встречу. Thank you very much for this time. Я поняла, что люди создают войны из-за того, что они находятся без осознания своего ресурса. I realized that people create wars because they're not aware of their resources. Если бы они знали, что у них все есть, то не было бы войн. If they would know, if they would realize that they have everything, there would be no wars. Хотя я знаю о принципах 2-3 года, я только сейчас поняла, что мой отец не понимал этот ресурс, когда он бил меня, когда я была ребенком. Though I know, aware of the principles for the last couple of years, I just now realized that my dad was out of touch with this resource when he was beating me harshly when I was a child. И мне понадобилось почти 3 года в этом понимании, чтобы осознать это. So it took me all this way, the path of understanding, but I could only realize it now. So thank you very much for today. Спасибо большое тебе за встречу.
Thank you so much, Mavis. Thank you, Kay.
Most welcome.
Thank you, Masha. Thank you, my beloved Yael. Thank you, dear, dear, dear people, for coming, for your heart, for your soul, for being together. Human beings. We're sending love and prayer and healing and good health. Thank you. You can send hearts or whatever your heart wants to send.
Ой,
Thank you, Mavis. Thank you, Jenny, Masha, everyone. Mavis, you're the best.
огромное большое спасибо.
Thank you.
Большое
everyone.
спасибо.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Благодарю.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Спасибо.
Благодарю.